Episode number 2 of Swiggity Swoogity. I'm coming for that boogity. Guys, this is Unpopular Opinions solo list assault. And today, boys, we've got everything. Boys and girls. I don't want to exclude anyone. Boys, girls, whatever gender you identify as. Boy, girl, school bus, rock, Martian, the planet Jupiter. I don't care. As long as you're listening, okay? As long as you're listening, and I swear, you planet Jupiters better stay out of my men's bathrooms. Use your own planet Jupiter bathroom. Solo List Assault is back, and guys, I can't believe eToro has done this to me, but they've replaced me as their top spokesperson. Alec Baldwin is on board eToro now, and it's just a little upsetting because, like, I don't get to be the best at very much. You know what I mean? But they were telling me, you're our guy. You know what I'm saying? They're telling me if it's game 7 and we need a buzzer beater, we're going to you. And now they got Alec Baldwin? How am I supposed to compete with Alec Baldwin? That's Stephen Baldwin's brother. Stephen Baldwin was in Biodome. Pauly Shore was in Biodome. Pauly Shore was in Encino Man. Brendan Fraser was in Encino Man. Brendan Fraser was in Looney Tunes Back in Action. Bugs Bunny was in Looney Tunes Back in Action. Bugs Bunny was in Space Jam. Michael Jordan was in Space Jam. So do you understand what I'm saying? Do you understand what I'm talking about? How this Game 7 analogy has come full circle? Okay? That's how we're connecting. That's how I'm teammates with Michael Jordan. You know what I mean? Me and Alec Baldwin, both eToro brothers. Then Stephen Baldwin, then Pauly Shore, then Brendan Fraser, then Bugs Bunny, then Michael Jordan. Now that's quite a squad there, okay? And Michael Jordan's not supposed to be gambling anymore. That's why he was banned from the NBA for 1.5 years. But I don't know if you would count crypto trading as gambling, okay? Especially on eToro, because eToro gives you the ability to operate with cryptocurrencies in a virtual portfolio, so you don't really have to put your own money in there, and you can practice trading with virtual currency, get really good at it, and then put your own money in there, and then see what you can do. We're having a little competition between the members of the Dan Brown Network, and I dare say that the Riptide is in the lead. Last I checked, I was up like 15%. Okay, and I don't know if these other guys are able to quite compete. You know, they can't hang with the big dogs. You know what we're talking about today. You absolutely do. The top games on the top console. Super Nintendo. Okay? We've got number 70, number 69, number 68, number 67, number 66, number 65, number 64, number 63, number 62, and number 61. Those are all happening today. Well, let me get a little sippy sip here. Hang on. I'm trying not to drink so much soda, guys. I really am. But it's hard. It's hard. I like soda. I hate water. But you know what I did? I got myself a nice insulated water bottle, and I put some WWE stickers on it to really gussy it up a little bit, you know, and we're just going to see if this can pique my interest in water, which, by the way, did you know, I just discovered this like a few days ago. Pique my interest is actually Pique. I thought it would be Peak because it's like the peak. It's like the top of your interest. The peak is the top of the mountain, and it's at the top of my interest. It's the thing I'm interested in. You've piqued my interest. But it is actually Pique. I had no idea. No idea. I'm assuming they're pronounced the same, but this whole time I thought that I have been saying a word that was not the word. Guys, I'm going to encourage all of you to get at me on Twitter. I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest Twitter user on my own account, but we've recently started a sort of parody account of one of my former co-hosts, Jake the Snake Harp. Okay, and you get at me. I'm running that account. Brian Chai is on there helping me out at Beef Stew Harp on Twitter. That's at BEEFSTEWHARP. You can check me out on there, post all sorts of Photoshop nonsense and making my own memes and everything, mostly to impress me and Brian. But if you want to correspond on there, I am probably more likely to respond to you on the Beef Stew Harp account. But thanks for listening, guys. And if you want to talk at all, then that's the way to get at me. I've had a few people ask me, where did I come up with the name Unpopular Opinions? And I'll admit, I wasn't the first person to call their podcast Unpopular Opinions. But here's the thing. I didn't check to see if it was taken. It was. I just didn't really care. Okay. And if you've got a really sharp eye, you'll notice that there was something very inorganic about that sentence like 15 seconds ago. And it was because I started that sentence like 20 minutes ago, but then got an important phone call from work. And since I didn't have Brian here, to handle duties for me, and I didn't have Dan here to handle duties for me, I had to pause it. You know what I'm saying? And I don't have too good of an idea about what I was talking about. I'm pretty sure that I was getting in on how this is named Unpopular Opinions. And here's the story. The reason the phrase Unpopular Opinions really stuck out to me when I had to choose a name for this podcast is as follows. I believe it was winter 2016. I am back home in the Western New York area visiting some friends, right? I live in Phoenix now. I'm back home visiting some friends. I'm chatting it up with this dude and his on-again, off-again girlfriend that live in an apartment together. And she says, hey, you remember this girl from a few years ago? She's single, and I remember the phrase. She says she's single as a Pringle. So I don't really remember how I got in touch with her, if she just gave me her phone number or if I hit her up on the gram or whatever. Anyways, we didn't see each other while I was in New York, but after I came back to Phoenix, we figured it'd be a good vacation for this other girl to come. Hey, you got a free place to stay in Riptide's apartment. We were acquaintances back in the day. She had a boyfriend at that time who she was no longer dating. And I was like, yeah, come on, hang out. So she got there and no, I don't know what my intentions were before she got there, but after she got there, my intentions were nothing. Okay, let's just get through the weekend. We didn't really hit it off as much as we thought it was. Let's say that. Maybe 2 or 3 days into like her 5-day whatever. I'm just trying to make conversation, man. And I was like, you got any unpopular opinions? She's like, what do you mean? So I say, well, let's just say, like, you thought The Land Before Time was the greatest movie ever. That would be an unpopular opinion. That would be an opinion that is not shared by the majority of people. From my example of The Land Before Time is the greatest movie ever, this is what she said. She said, I think that people who protest abortions are so stupid that legally they should not be allowed freedom of speech. And I'm like, that's a little bit heavier, man. You realize that I came at you with this animated children's movie is the best movie of all time. And you start going on about people who don't share your exact stance on women's reproductive rights, and they're so stupid that they shouldn't be protected by the Constitution? Now, regardless of where you fall on the abortion argument, I'm sure you can understand my dismay when presented with such an unpopular opinion. Well, my friends, that was literally the last time that I ever saw that person. The rest of the weekend plans were canceled. She got an Airbnb, she got an Uber, and I've literally never seen her since. And so it just always kind of stuck out in my mind, you know, the phrase unpopular opinions, because that was what I had said right before this just huge situation with somebody who I didn't know it was one of the most uncomfortable positions I have ever been in. From me saying that The Land Before Time is the greatest film ever made, she all of a sudden starts just berating my stance on abortion. I wish I wouldn't have got sucked in. We did argue for a little bit. I wish everyone's stance on pro-choice versus pro-life was the same as mine. I am pro-life. That's not because I want to control anyone's body. That's because I believe life begins at conception. And if you don't agree with that, please don't shut this podcast off. We don't have to talk about that right now. You know what I'm saying? When I'm talking about unpopular opinions, even in terms of this show, I still mean it with the same mentality that I had when I said that The Land Before Time is the greatest film ever made. That's why I argue with Brian about basketball stats in video games from 1989. Maybe someday Unpopular Opinions will be the #1 podcast in America, and I'll really have a platform to get out there and speak for what I think is right. The headphones that I'm not wearing just fell off my microphone and onto the floor. But right now, I want my unpopular opinions to be about Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble. Number 70 on our countdown of the 100 greatest Super Nintendo video games of all time. Now, Donkey Kong Country, the first one of the best. One of the best. Okay? I don't think Donkey Kong Country 3 is quite as good as Donkey Kong Country, but it's still a darn good game, okay? Donkey Kong Country, you were playing as Donkey Kong, you were playing as Diddy Kong. And then Donkey Kong Country 2, you're like, oh, frick, where's Donkey, man? And a lot of people think that 2 is better than 1. But in that one, you're playing as Diddy and Dixie. Okay, and then in 3, it got pretty good reviews when it comes out, but nowadays, retro reviewers cannot stand this game. It's too hard. It's not like the originals. That's why it's only number 70 on this list. I mean, even Sid Lexia doesn't think that it was one of the top Super Nintendo games. I really like this game. Yes, it is super hard. Yes, it is unfair at times. Yes, it is not quite as good as the first 2 in the series. Yes, Kiddy Kong is not nearly as fun to play as Donkey Kong was, even though they have pretty much the same exact abilities. Dixie Kong's cool because she can helicopter around with her ponytail. This game came out in 1996. It was developed by Rare and published by Nintendo. I'll read the little synopsis Presented to you on Sidlexia. Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong have been kidnapped by Baron K. Rulenstein and his evil Kremling army. With the useful Kongs indisposed, it's up to Dixie Kong and Kitty Kong to stop the Kremlings and a host of nefarious boss characters. Like, this is a really, really good game. Now think about what you're comparing it to. You are comparing it to I don't think I'm exaggerating too much by saying this, but literally like two of the best video games ever. Donkey Kong Country is one of the most iconic platformers in the history of the world. And most people who have really dove in, most people who have dove into both of these games, Donkey Kong Country and Donkey Kong Country 2, prefer 2. Like, I'm not joking around. Those are two of the best platformers of all time. Go back to cavemen, okay? Those frickers are rubbing two sticks together and mushing berries up against the wall and calling it art, cave paintings. From that time period to this very second, there have been very, very, very few platformers created that are better than Donkey Kong Country or Donkey Kong Country 2. That's what we're comparing Donkey Kong Country 3 to. I should say, like, that's what we're comparing Donkey Kong Country 3 against. Because that's what we're comparing Donkey Kong Country 3 to. It just sounds like I'm saying a bunch of numbers at the end and it doesn't, like, make a ton of sense. Okay? But what I'm getting at here is we've got literally all of eternity. We're talking millions of years. Millions of years. When my homeboys from the land before time were walking around the earth, up until now, well, okay, maybe you don't, you're Christian, you doesn't subscribe to the old earth theory, maybe it's only 10,000 years old, okay, we'll say at a minimum, we're going back 10,000 years. And throughout those 10,000 years, Donkey Kong Country and Donkey Kong Country 2 are in what? Like the top 10 platformers over those 10,000 years? That's what we're comparing Donkey Kong Country 3 to. That's what we're comparing Donkey Kong Country 3 against, is what I meant to say. That's why Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble, comes in at 70. Because we're comparing it against the best of the best of the best. Donkey Kong Country 3 is actually a pretty good game. And it gets a little pricey these days, but check it out any way you can. Emulation. I don't want to get into the legality of that, okay? I'm not condoning any illegal activity. I'm not. I won't do it. I won't do it. But if you've purchased this game in the past, then you have the legal right to play it on an emulator on your PC. So what you can do is go download that ROM and play it. Now keep in mind, this is only legal if you paid for the physical or digital version of Donkey Kong Country 3. Give it a play, though. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that Donkey Kong Country 3 was a groundbreaking game. I think it was a game that they used the same formula as two of the best platformers of all time, and people were kind of tired of it by then. Do I think it was one of the best games ever? No. It wasn't one of the best games ever. I think it was a pretty darn good game. It's just really, really, really hard to give it the credit it deserves because it wasn't as good as the first two. So why would you play a sort of inferior version of the same game that we've already seen twice before? That doesn't mean that it was bad. This is an A- or a B+ game. The problem is you are putting it up against an A or an A+ game. So it's like, okay, what would you rather play? An A+ game or a B+ game? Obviously, you're going to pick the A+ game. That doesn't mean that B+ is a bad grade. It doesn't. That doesn't mean that Donkey Kong Country 3 was a bad game. It's a good game. It's a very, very good game. Very tough. Very tough. It's very, very, very tough. Number 69. Nice. Demon's Crest. In this one, you play as Firebrand, and he was an enemy character in the Ghosts and Goblins series. Ooh, ghosts and goblins, ghosts and goblins. Super Ghouls and Ghosts. Those are hard games. This game, I don't remember it being hard. I have not played this game very much. This is an example. Now people point this out about Super Mario World being a criticism. Or being a flaw in Super Mario World is that you could fly over everything. In this Demon's Crest game, if I recall correctly, if I'm thinking of the right game here, I mean, it's hard for me to keep every game I've ever played straight in my head. And like I said, I don't do any research because I want to come in here and be able to react organically to this list. You could just fly all over this game. No running start. You could just hover all over. So Demon's Crest, definitely not as difficult as Ghouls and Ghosts and Goblins. Released in 1994 by Capcom. And what have I been saying? I've been saying you get Capcom in the Super Nintendo or the NES era, and you're getting a pretty good game. I think I am pretty sure that I would put a bet down if you're like, oh, Ryan, look, I've got this game. It's from Capcom. It's on the Super Nintendo. Would you like to wager that it's a good game? I would feel very, 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 very confident saying that, why, yes, sir, I do believe, or ma'am, or Planet Jupiter, stay out of my bathroom, Planet Jupiter, but yes, I would hazard a guess that you're holding a good game. And Demon's Crest is no exception. It's no exception. I don't think it's the best game on this list. I don't think it's better than Dixie Kong's Double Trouble. I don't. But I don't write for SidLexia.com, okay? I barely write for youmeandbtc.com/unpopular opinions. I just get on this microphone and I go, man. I go. You know what I'm saying? I just grab it and I go. You gotta grab the bull by the horns and you gotta go. You gotta grab the brass ring, okay? And if grabbing the brass ring means that I think Donkey Kong Country 3 is better than Demon's Crest because that's just what I'm spouting off the top of my head at that moment, then that's what I'm gonna do. Demon's Crest, still a good game. Just like pretty much everything that Capcom put out on the Super Nintendo. I mean, their worst Mega Man game out of 11 different Mega Man games was still in the top 100 of the Super Nintendo. The first 11 Mega Man games. Capcom was not messing around in 1994. This game, it sold terribly when it first came out. It was one of the biggest financial flops of its time. But that doesn't necessarily mean it was a bad game. Think about how many games have sold poorly. Okay? Little Samson, ring a bell? That thing goes for $1,000 these days. Demon's Crest isn't a bad game. It's not a bad game. It's a very cool platformer. It's got some RPG elements in it, something like Zelda 2 or Castlevania 2. It's an underrated game. You can fly all over, but that's okay. I think it's fine at number 69. Castlevania Dracula X. Now, this is one of those Konami titles, okay? And I don't think that Konami's as good as Capcom back in the day. I'm not claiming that, okay? Now, do not for a second at me on Twitter. Be like, at Beef Stew Harp, why are you saying Konami's better than Capcom? Because I'm not saying that. I'm saying they are pretty darn good. Castlevania Dracula X. Released in 1995 by Konami. These Konami games, these Capcom games, they do not mess around, dude. They don't. Sunset Riders, man. Sunset Riders. Sunset Riders is sick, dude. That game's awesome. That's a Konami game. Castlevania Dracula X, not the best Castlevania game that's ever come out. It's still a very, very good game. Sid Lexia is saying that, much like Donkey Kong Country 3, this game has become the victim of revisionist history. People on the internet have attempted to retcon reality itself and make you believe that the Dracula X cartridge was a video game equivalent of Osama bin Laden and that no one bought it, much less liked it. That is not true. Dracula X was a great game at the time. It was a Konami game in the mid-90s. The early mid-90s. Yes, it's going to be a decent game. Castlevania 4 was awesome. Castlevania Dracula X, not quite as good in my opinion. But it was a pretty decent game. It's also getting expensive these days. It's getting expensive. Number 67, Knights of the Round, released by my boys at Capcom. Play as King Arthur, Sir Lancelot, or Sir Percival, and bring peace to your land by finding the legendary Holy Grail. This Capcom beat-em-up also has a cool twist. Your character levels up as your score increases. Sid Lexia knows he's putting a lot of Capcom games on this list, okay? He knows Capcom could work some magic back in the day. Just like that's what I'm trying to tell you guys, man. Have you ever played Mega Man X? Have you ever played Mega Man X2, Mega Man X3, Disney's Aladdin? Have you ever played those? Those are quality games, man. Those are quality games. You may have noticed that this is the 7th Capcom game to make the list so far. This Super Nintendo's success can directly be attributed to the strong relationship that Capcom and Nintendo had at that time. If Capcom had released even 1/3 as many titles as they had for the Super Nintendo, if they would have released 1/3 as many for the Genesis, Sega would have destroyed Nintendo in the console wars. Fortunately for the Big N, Capcom highly favored the SNES hardware. I'm not going to get on board with that. I'm not going to get on board with that, Sid Lexia. I respect a lot of what you have to say, and I know that this is your list, and I'm some guy with a podcast that nobody cares about talking about your list, but come on. The Sega Genesis outsold the Super Nintendo for a little bit, but you're not going to tell me that a few Capcom games are going to make the difference in that entire generation of console wars. Capcom was good, man. I've been saying it for a while now. Capcom was good. I've been saying that for 10, 15 minutes maybe. But they weren't so good that they're going to push past all of the Super Nintendo exclusives: Super Mario World, Zelda, Donkey Kong, Super Mario All-Stars, Super Mario World 2. Holy cow, dude. Pilot Wings, F-Zero, Sim City. You're not going to convince me that Capcom was the difference. Those games that I just mentioned had nothing to do with Capcom. And all of them might be better than anything that Capcom even put out. I mean, Capcom Mega Man X, great game. Maybe in the Super Nintendo top 10, I think. I mean, they made the SNES Classic. But I don't think that it was so good that it would have changed the entire direction of the console wars. ActRaiser 2, released in 1993 by Quintet. Quintet was the developer, and published by Enix. You are the master, a powerful avatar sent to eliminate the evil forces that had overrun the world. There's no more city building, just pure side-scrolling action. Oh, and the game is darn near impossible. This is a game that was not the same as the original. Okay? I am not super familiar with ActRaiser 2. I'd be fine with giving it a shot myself, because I know one of the reasons people have problems with it is because it was different than the original. And sometimes when games are different from the original, people have a tough time separating this is a bad game versus this is a different game. Number 65, Cybernator, released in 1993 by developer NCS, published by Konami. In the year 2065 AD, the Earth is split into two warring factions, the evil Axis forces and Noble Federation. As Jake, a newly trained Federation pilot, you are given control of a Cybernator mech and thrust into combat against the Axis army. You will fight this war on many fronts, in space, on the moon, in the Earth's atmosphere, and finally in the Anemones? In the sea anemone's capital. Cybernator is the sequel to the 1990 Sega Genesis game Target Earth. This game had giant Mode 7 explosions. These explosions popped. Just a John Madden, boom! Oh, now that's a turducken. That's my John Madden impression. John Madden on Thanksgiving. Oh, give me a turducken. Boom. Pow. Quadruple boople coverage. Brett Favre. If you've ever listened to John Madden speak, that is spot on. That is number one John Madden impression. Go look up John Madden greatest calls. And you'll see that boom, pow. Quadruple boople coverage. The quarterback's dropping back. And if the quarterback would have been tackled before he ran 5 yards, that would have been a 4-yard gain or less. That's the John Madden voice right there. I'm kind of blowing through these games because we're getting to some of my faves. And I'm getting too excited to talk about Knights of the Round and ActRaiser 2 and Cybernator. Pocky and Rocky is going to get that treatment next. Nobody cared about this game until the Game Grumps played it. The G Grumps were like, dude, let's play Pocky and Rocky, man. And then this game, go on price charting, and for both this and the sequel, you will see the exact moment that Game Grumps decided to play Pocky and Rocky. Pocky and Rocky and Pocky and Rocky 2 are some of the best, and not quite as good as Goof Troop. Not quite as good as Goof Troop, but they are some of the best co-op games on the Super Nintendo. If you don't like sports games and you're looking for a game to play with or against a friend, then Pocky and Rocky is what you got to go for. I like Goof Troop. I think that might be the best co-op game on the Super Nintendo. I don't think that Pocky and Rocky is too far behind. Now, the way these guys control, it's like a shooter. You know what I mean? It's like a top-down shooter. It's kind of like a cartoony Zelda style. If Zelda had a gun that was like playing cards or throwing cards. I can't remember exactly which one, if it was Pocky or if it was Rocky. But one of them used throwing cards as their weapon. And I thought that was pretty cool. I've dabbled a bit in Magic, both Magic the Gathering and like card Magic. My fiance gets on my case all the time because I spent like a year or two doing Magic, and I would do like impromptu Magic shows for my friends at the office or something that would last like 10 minutes. And, oh, is this your card? And everyone would be like, oh, that's my card. How did you know? How did you know? And they wouldn't be able to figure out what's going on. But my fiance gives me a hard time because like right in the midst of my Magic mania, where I was buying a bunch of different decks of playing cards, and I would just sit in bed while I was watching TV and practice shuffling these cards so I could get really good at the controlling the cards and stuff like that. Right in the middle of all of that, we went to this like carnival or this fair that happens in my city twice a year. And there was this little kid who called himself Magic Mike doing magic tricks, and he just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And he was just like a snot-nosed little middle schooler, dude. And he like, I was just minding my own business, and he like calls me over to a stand and starts showing me magic tricks. And I was like, yeah, cool, dude. And I just didn't like his attitude, man. I just didn't like little freaking Magic Mike's attitude. He just freaking, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? He just rubbed me the wrong way. That's why his name's Magic Mike, but I sometimes want to call him Rubby Wrong Way. Now, people get mad at me because they know that his name's Magic Mike and his name isn't Rubby Wrong Way. So that's why I've tried to not call him Rubby Wrong Way, but that's what I would like to call him instead of Magic Mike. I'd like to call him Rubby Wrong Way. So Magic Mike is telling me all this he's trying to impress me with this magic tricks. And I'm like, dude, you little guy. And I walked up and I grabbed him by his little freaking throat and I shook him back and forth. And I'm like, Magic Mike, you freaking Rubby Wrong Way freak. You're out here, you're 10, you're 13, whatever, how many freaking, once you get over 20 years old, you can't tell how old kids are anymore, okay? Look at a 19-year-old, and all I know is that they're somewhere between the ages of 7 and 25, okay? So anyways, I got this kid by the throat, and I'm shaking him up and down, and his parents are really yelling at me and stuff. But this kid was coming at me with his magic tricks, okay? And I'm like, freaking Rubby Wrong Way, Magic Mike, why are you doing this to me, kid? There are 1,000 people out here at this carnival, okay? And you could be trying to impress any one of them with your magic tricks. Instead, you pick me, Rubby Wrong Way. You pick me, Rubby, and you called me over, and you wanted me to see your magic tricks, and I'm not impressed, and you stick your freaking snot nose up in the air at me, Rubby. Frick, man. I told that kid that I knew magic, and I showed him a trick or two, and I was better at magic than him, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I lost my cool, and this little brat got the best of me, but Magic Mike, you don't know what you're doing. Your name can't be Magic Mike, dude. Channing Tatum and Matthew McConaughey did a whole movie about being named Magic Mike. This little kid wouldn't even take his shirt off. As I'm shaking him by the neck, I'm like, Rubby, if your name's gonna be Magic Mike, why are you not taking your shirt off? You're supposed to take your shirt off and dance around for me, Rubby. If you're not going to do that, then don't call yourself Magic Mike. I to this day, I cannot believe it. My fiance gives me a hard time like I was the bad guy. Okay? Like I crossed the line when I kicked him in his stupid little nutsack. Okay? Come at me with your magic tricks, Magic Mike. Magic Dyke. That's more like it, dude. I don't even know if that makes any sense. Frick. The one thing that I am proud about this kid, Magic Mike, though, is that I didn't let him get to me. I kept my cool. And to this day, I've never lost my temper. I've never once yelled. I've never once screamed. I've never once complained. I've never once went on a podcast and complained about this stupid bratty 12-year-old shoving his mother effing bicycle playing cards in my face at the town carnival or whatever it was. Gosh. I had just played this game. I gave some guy $5 a few minutes earlier, and I threw some rings, and I landed it on a freaking dildo or a bottle or something. And as a reward for doing that, this toothless gentleman gave me a little pocket knife as a prize, okay? And as I'm getting that pocket knife out, dude, my fiance, she was my girlfriend at the time, she must have thought it was pretty sexy, dude, because she didn't know how strong I was. But I was about to frick that kid up with this pocket knife that I had just won from the toothless gentleman down the way who I had paid $5 to put a ring on the dildo. All I'm saying is, dude, is I cannot believe that with all my magic experience that this freaking little Magic Mike comes at me with his tricks, dude. Number 63, Tecmo Super... How did I start talking about Magic Mike? How did... Listen, here's the thing. This carnival, it was like 5 miles away from my house, okay? And I'm trying to be less weight than I am now, okay? This was a long time ago, and I'm still doing a poor job at losing weight, but I was trying at the time. So me and my fiance, we got on our little freaking bikes, and we pedaled all the way there, okay? And as I'm dying of an asthma attack, and my cigarette went out 8 different times on the ride over, but I'm dying of an asthma attack, and I get off my bike, and the first thing I gotta see after doing all the rest of the carnival is this little kid showing me the ace of spades. Gosh darn it! Get your stuff together, Magic Mike! That's what happened. In Pocky and Rocky, one of the characters uses playing cards as their main weapon. Okay? And I will admit that I didn't strangle Magic Mike that night. That part of the story I just made up, but I've thought about it many days since. Don't kill kids. Don't kill children, okay? I don't think you should kill children. I don't think I should kill children, no matter how terrible their magic tricks are. No matter how good they think they are at doing magic tricks, even though you aren't frickin' rubby wrong way. Number 63, Tecmo Super Bowl III Final Edition. Released in 1995, developed and published by Tecmo. Tecmo? This bratty kid got me all worked up, dude. Tecmo Super Bowl III is the third game in the fantastic Tecmo Super Bowl series, and continuing the 2 regular Tecmo Bowl games, counting the 2 Tecmo... Well, that's not true. Okay, so Sid Lexia, they're not a fan of sports games. That's all right. Let me break it down for you. First, on the NES, we had Tecmo Bowl. That was the one with Walter Payton on the Chicago Bears. If you play that game, be the Chicago Bears. But that was only 9-on-9 action. Okay, and then a few years later, toward the end of the NES, Tecmo Super Bowl came out. And that was the game. The best sports game on the NES, hands down, and in the conversation for the best sports game of all time. It's either that or it's NHL 94. So then a year or two later, they released a revamped version of that game for the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis. It's just called Tecmo Super Bowl, and it's pretty much the same game, but with bigger playbooks. You could play longer seasons, maybe had a few more players and a little bit more customization and better graphics. A few years after that, they released Tecmo Super Bowl 2, where they kind of changed the art style a little bit. And then finally in 1995, Tecmo Super Bowl 3 Final Edition. Really, you could pick any one of the 3 Tecmo Super Bowl games on the Super Nintendo, and they're pretty much interchangeable. They're probably the 3 best football games on the Super Nintendo. Sid Lexius says, the great thing about this game is that I can play as Drew Bledsoe and lead him to multiple Super Bowl victories he so desperately deserved. Screw all those bandwagon Patriots fans who don't appreciate everything Bledsoe did for that team. You love Tom Brady so much, go suck his dick. What? Oh, jeez, dude. I don't want to suck Tom Brady's dick. Sounds awful. If you're looking for a sports game on the Super Nintendo, I recommend any of the Tecmo Super Bowl games. I recommend NHL 94. NBA Jam is okay, but I didn't grow up playing it in the arcades, and if you didn't either, I don't think that's one you specifically have to hunt down. You know, pop a quarter in the next time you're out mini golfing with your sugar mama. Okay, and see how NBA Jam does for it. It's not really one that I feel is in the conversation for the best sports game on the Super Nintendo. I really liked Roger Clemens' MVP Baseball when that came out back in the day. I don't think it was quite as good as Ken Griffey Jr.'s Winning Run, or Ken Griffey Jr.'s Slugfest, I believe, were the two. I can get the Ken Griffey Jr. There's Ken Griffey Jr. Presents Major League Baseball, which came out on the N64. Ken Griffey Jr.'s Winning Run came out on the Super Nintendo. I think Slugfest also came out on the Super Nintendo, and then there was one more. Maybe Slugfest was N64. 2 were on Super Nintendo, 2 were on N64. Those are all great baseball games. Not as good as Super Mega Baseball. I'm going to have to do a podcast about Super Mega Baseball because Super Mega Baseball is like my favorite sports video game, maybe of all time. I've probably got the most time into it. I've created so many teams on that. Another really good sports game on the Super Nintendo is at number 62, and other people aren't going to agree with this. Honestly, for me, I know this is ridiculous, and I know that this is way higher than it should be ranked. Number 62, WWF Royal Rumble, released in 1993, developer Sculptured Software and Acclaim, published by LJN, and LJN mostly sucks. They did do Roger Clemens MVP Baseball, which was okay. It was pretty good. But now we have WWF Royal Rumble. And before this, the WWF, I believe it was Super WrestleMania. And that was cool. That one had Jake the Snake in it. This one didn't, but it did have Macho Man Randy said, "Oh yeah, brother, snap it to a Slim Jim." And if you thought that my John Madden, "Oh, give me some turducken," was pretty good, listen to my Macho Man Randy Savage say, "Classic WWF action featuring Macho Man Randy Savage." Yeah, Mr. Perfect. I don't think I can do my Randy Savage throughout the whole thing because it's hurting my throat so bad. Also, I know it's terrible. My John Madden was also terrible, but I wasn't being serious when I said that I was doing the best John Madden impression ever. I was being serious when I was saying that Magic Mike can go kick rocks, dude. Kick those rocks straight off a cliff, you 13-year-old wiener, dude. kick Rock straight off the cliff and then go pick him up, dude. And when you fall off the cliff, don't come crying to me for help because you tried to show me up in front of my lady friend at the time regarding magic tricks and you couldn't do it. You couldn't do it, dude. Go have your mom wipe your nose for you and go back to 7th grade, you little freak. Mr. Perfect, The Undertaker, Bret Hart, Tatanka, Crush, Ric Flair, Shawn Michaels, Razor Ramon, Yokozuna, Ted DiBiase, and Lex Luger. This game was not as I don't think that this roster on the SNES was quite as good as the Sega Genesis. If you have a 6-button controller, I think that this game is awesome on the Sega Genesis. I know it's not the best. I know it's not the best game on the Sega Genesis. Honestly, dude. Honestly, my friends. If I had to take one Sega Genesis with me and my Sega Genesis to a lonely desert island where I had nothing to, like, no human interaction, all I had was one TV and one Sega Genesis, and all I could do all day was masturbate and play Sega Genesis, WWF Royal Rumble would probably be the one that it had Papa Shango! Papa Shango was awesome, man! He was the bee's knees, dude. He was the bumblebee's knees, man. Papa Shango? Absolutely. That guy was freaking awesome. He came in with his voodoo. He made the Ultimate Warrior throw up. This game is so good. This game is so good, dude. A lot of people don't like it because there's a lot of button mashing involved. You know who I bet doesn't like it is that little stupid idiot Magic Mike. WWF Royal Rumble has a great roster, but too bad it's split between the Super Nintendo and Genesis versions. I would have cut Tatanka, Yokozuna, and Lex Luger from this game because they suck and put in Rick, the Model Martel, Hulk Hogan, and IRS. All those guys were on the Genesis version. It is weird. It is weird how they split up Ted DiBiase and IRS because they were a tag team. Now, I don't know if they were a tag team at the exact time that this game came out. I like IRS. He's one of the reasons I prefer the Sega Genesis version. Oh, dude, his move, the write-off. That was his finisher. Mike Rotunda. He's Bray Wyatt's dad, dude. Bray Wyatt's the champ right now, dude. He is the champ's daddy. What more do you want? Dude, this was right before the WWF entered that new generation bullcrap Kevin Nash era. Where Bret Hart's like a great wrestler if he's not the top dude. He doesn't have the charisma to be the top dude. I don't know if charisma is the right word, but he's not eccentric. He's not over the top. You know what I'm saying? And that might be what you need from the top guy. You know what I'm saying? Somebody who's like really gonna carry the company. He's probably the greatest fundamental pro wrestler of all time. I can't recall too many stories of people getting hurt by Bret Hart, and so many people had their best matches ever because of Bret Hart. If it wasn't for Bret Hart's matches against Stone Cold Steve Austin, we probably never would have had Stone Cold Mania Austin 316, dude. Bret Hart could have matches with anybody, man. But I don't think he was a tremendous top guy. Not like Hulk Hogan was. Not like Stone Cold was. Not like The Rock was. Not like Macho Man Randy Savage. Oh, yeah. Macho Man. Let me tell you something, Mean Gene. The cream will rise to the top. My impressions are horrible. Zoinks, like Scoob. We gotta get out of here. Your impressions are terrible. That was, what's his name? Friggin' Shaggy. The Shaggy from the Scooby-Doo. Casey Kasem. That's the voice of Shaggy. And sometimes I get Casey Kasem confused with Case Keenum, who's the NFL quarterback. They're different dudes, though. They're different dudes. That's something, like, when I go to bed at night, I try to remind myself that Casey Kasem and Case Keenum are different people, and sometimes I still forget. WWF Royal Rumble was such a great game, man. You could pick up the chair. You could smash people with it. You could have a Royal Rumble. It was limited to 6 people in the ring at a time, but I don't care. This was a Super Nintendo. This was 1993, dude. You weren't going to get 30 dudes in one ring at one time on the Super Nintendo, man. The Super Nintendo, it couldn't handle a ton of stuff on screen at one time. That's why it was notorious for slowdown. That's why Sega Genesis pushed their whole marketing campaign behind the fact that it had blast processing, man. Blast processing. Super Nintendo didn't have blast processing, and I don't know if blast processing would have helped you process 30 dudes in the ring at one time. But even if it did, it doesn't matter because there weren't that, this was not that. This was not that. This was 6 guys in the ring. But you could do it. You could do it, and that's what was real awesome, man. You could do the tag team championship. You could do a triple tag team match. You could do 1v1 match. And you could do exhibition. There were 10 different levels of difficulty. You could hit them with the finisher, man. You hear that elbow coming in, dude. Randy Savage off the top rope. Oh yeah, snap it to a Slim Jim. I think my Randy Savage gets worse every time I do it, and my throat hurts a little bit more every time I do it. Okay, but you could go on you could jump off the turnbuckle and you could hit him. You could hit him with the Shawn Michaels back suplex, dude. You could hit him with the Razor Ramon Razor's Edge. You could hit him with the Yokozuna Banzai Drop. You could put the Ted DiBiase $1 Million Dream Sleeper Hold. You could hit him with the Lex Luger Running Forearm. You could hit him with the Undertaker Tombstone. You could hit him with the Mr. Perfect Plex. You could hit him with the Bret Hart freaking sharpshooter. I don't know Tatanka's finisher. I don't know Crush's finisher. You can hit him with the Ric Flair figure 4. I know you're thinking, what about Sweet Chin Music, man? But Shawn Michaels didn't adopt Sweet Chin Music until just after this game came out. It was the back suplex up until then. But if you had the Sega Genesis game, then you can hit him with IRS's write-off. You could hit him with Hulk Hogan's leg drop. You could hit him with Papa Shango's shoulder breaker. Dude, this game was awesome, man. This game was awesome. The sprites were so big and realistic looking for the time. And you had Mean Gene Okerlund come into the ring. And Hulk Hogan's like, oh, let me tell you something, Mean Gene. And then Macho Man Randy Savage, he's like, oh, yeah, snap it to a Slim Jim. And then Randy Savage, he died of a heart attack while he was driving his Jeep and he crashed into a car. I remember it was 2011. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. I was a freshman in college. And I was like, oh, no. Macho Man. And I was like, how could you do this to me, Mach? How could you do this to me, Mach? Frick, man. You're doing steroids, but why are you doing all the steroids, man? I still would have liked you without the steroids and your heart wouldn't have exploded, dude. Your heart doesn't have to explode at 50-something years old, man. Why? Why, dude? Why can't we still have Macho Man Randy Savage running around, dude? That's what I'm saying. What's happened to Macho Man Randy Savage? He's dead. I know he's dead. I know exactly what's happened to him. But why? Okay? Like, why did you have to do all the steroids? Vince McMahon, why are you having your dudes do steroids? You robbed me of my bro, Macho Man, Randy Savage, dude. You robbed me with your freaking steroids, Vince McMahon. Hornswoggle's father, Vince McMahon, steroids. Frick. Number 61, Harvest Moon. The first game in the prophylactic farming sim series places you in the role of a manly farmer who has just inherited his grandfather's ranch. You have 2 years of game time to transform your rundown old plot of land into the best darn farm in the whole world. And if you get lonely, you can try and find a wife. You can try and win a wife. That's right. I said win. Want to fight about it? Japanese people love the Harvest Moon franchise. I thought my fiance would like it. She didn't. And I thought she would like Stardew Valley, and she didn't. And she loves Spyro, dude. She freaking loves Spyro. Just like I love all of you. This went off the rails, man. Magic Mike got in my head, dude. Magic Mike got in my head. I don't know what to say. I wish I wasn't this sweaty. Okay? But I am. And I wish I didn't have to go. But I do. Guys, this has been episode 4 of Solo List Assault. Or episode 4 of Super Nintendo Countdown. V2.4 Solo List Assault of Unpopular Opinion. Just know it's a Super Nintendo podcast, man. Just know it's a Super Nintendo podcast, okay? I don't keep track of the titles, man. I got too many different titles going on, and that's Dan Brown's fault. That's Dan Brown's fault for sure. I don't know why, but that's got to be his fault somehow. Anyways, thanks guys for listening. Thank you to today's sponsor and everyday sponsor, at least for the recent past, eToro. Upstaged me by bringing on Alec Baldwin. My frick, dude. eToro, come on. I just thought I was going to the top, man. And now they got this 30 Rock mother effer Alec Baldwin, dude. 30 Rock. How can I compete with that? Have you seen how handsome he is, dude? I'm 27 years old, overweight with a receding hairline, dude. I can't compete with Alec Baldwin. You mean BTC.com/trade. Let's start a movement. Let's get more people going from You Mean BTC than from Alec Baldwin, okay? So that they can know who the real man in this relationship is, okay? Who's pitching and who's catching, Alec Baldwin? Because I don't know if it's you, dude. I don't know if you got the gumption. I don't know. I do know I'm out of time. I've been out of time for quite some while. But I've just kept talking. And I don't know why. You don't know why either. I'm done though, guys. Thanks for listening. Get at me on Twitter, @BeefStewHarp. I love you.